just about a week ago, something happened that I didn't give much thought to until late that night. I just didn't think a lot about it, but the Lord used it to illustrate a truth in my life. What happened was I was going by the breakfast at Manna Cafe, and long story short, if any of you don't know what that means, it just means that I stopped by this breakfast that we serve to a lot of the homeless and low-income folks every Saturday morning. I like to stop by there anytime that I can and just kind of peek in and say hi and thank the volunteers and stuff like that. But when I rolled into the parking lot, I noticed that there was this guy, and he was yelling at the top of his lungs to a woman, which I kind of, from their body language, I believe it was his girlfriend. But this guy was so mad. He was so mad. And so I just, instead of just going into the building, I waited for a minute, just kind of kept an eye out and watched them for a few minutes because I didn't want her to get hit. And he was so angry, I felt like that's what he wanted to do. Finally, I thought, I don't really trust where he's going. So anyway, I walked over to where they were, and eventually I realized that they were just having their own fight. I don't really think that he was going to harm her standing out there in public, but he just seemed really volatile, really furious. And I thought, well, if nothing else, I just need them to move it off the property, because what can happen with a situation like that is it can kind of have a domino effect, and suddenly everybody's caught up in the drama, and then somebody else is mad and somebody else is mad. And I just didn't want this taking place right outside the door where people were going in and out. So I thought, okay, let me see if I can diffuse this a little bit. And so I walked over to where they were standing, and this guy immediately turned his wrath and his rage from her to me. Which I get it, you know, he was mad, and I was walking into his space. So all his anger turns to me, and he starts screaming and shouting obscenities into my face at the top of his lungs. He was so furious that I would dare to approach him while he was trying to put this woman in her place or whatever he was doing. And when you spend a lot of time serving and working with folks who can sometimes get really volatile, you just learn not to be afraid of it. It's part of life, I guess. I don't think I'm ever careless, it's not that. But something like this is not a new situation. And also, as some of you might know, the Lord has pulled me out of fear about 11 years ago. So I don't walk in fear anymore anyway. But his words were coming out so quickly that I couldn't even get a word in edgewise. And so what I realized is while he's all this stuff's coming at me, I realized, I'm not going to get a word in edgewise. And so I kind of gestured and I said, off the property. In other words, take all this just 40 feet away off the property, because we had people going in and out, like I said, children, all that. So he was not at all happy with that, and he got more and more angry and just furious. But even though he outweighed me by easily 100 pounds and was screaming in my face, the only emotion that I really felt was mild annoyance. And I think that's because I couldn't even ask him for what I needed to ask him, which was, I just need you to take this over there about 40 feet. But the interesting thing was that I didn't change my posture or change my stance, and I didn't break eye contact with him. And I noticed that very, very quickly, he started moving away. And after a few feet, he even turned his back to me and kept moving toward the edge of the property. And he did turn back around once or twice and keep screaming and keep cussing and just saying the most vile things. But he kept moving. And he got almost to the edge of the property, and then one of the other guys that works in the community center came out and kind of took it from there. And thankfully, in the process, I was able to ask her very quickly, "Are you okay?" And she said that she was. Then it was either that night or maybe the next morning that I even thought about the incident. And I felt the Lord kind of encouraged me to think more deeply about it and to remember the fact that he could have squashed me with his pinky finger, probably. I mean, this was a big guy. That even though that was the situation, that he started to walk away from me very, very quickly, and that it had something to do with the fact that, like I said, I just didn't break eye contact, and somehow he knew he didn't intimidate me. And this isn't to say, oh, I'm so brave, but there's a lesson in this. Then a different incident from a little over a year ago came to mind. And what happened that day is that there's this thing in my town in Clarksville called Leadership Clarksville, and I don't know, I think other towns do have it, but anyway, you spend the year learning about your town. I was with about 34, 35 other people that day, and we were learning about law enforcement in Clarksville. And so we ended up at the one of the police station things, or it was a training place, I don't remember. The point is that we were handling guns, and we were able to shoot revolvers. And some of us had never done that before. Anyway, they lined us up and they gave us a quick tutorial about what to do, what not to do. And then they turned us loose with a bunch of bullets and the target, the target thing that you shoot at, and you're trying to hit the bullseye, which is probably right in the middle of the guy's forehead or something like that, or maybe it's here. And the point is, there is a circle about this big that you're trying to hit. I kind of enjoyed it. I was just kind of getting a kick out of the whole thing. And of course, they show you how to stand and how to do all that stuff. And so one of the police officers comes up behind me and he says, "Have you shot a revolver before today?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You're doing really, really well." And I thought, yeah, it is pretty cool because I'm definitely hitting the mark that I want to hit. And he said, "Do you realize why you're doing that? Do you realize why you're doing so well with that gun?" And I said, "Why?" And he said, "You don't flinch." And immediately that caught my attention, because flinching comes from fear of what is about to happen. When you flinch, it's because you're expecting something bad. You're expecting to be hurt. You're expecting to be wounded. You're bracing for something negative. It's your body saying, "Oh, whoa." So apparently, which makes sense, when you shoot a gun, if you're pulling the trigger and you flinch at the last minute because it gives you anxiety, the bullet's going to go all over the place. And so what the Lord was able to do was to apply these couple of lessons to me in the situation that I'm going through right now. There are hard decisions I'm having to make. There are things that I have to wrestle through. They're not easy. And if I indulged fear, I could definitely go there. I could absolutely go there with this situation. There are a lot of unknowns. Sometimes from day to day, I'm like, I'm not even sure what to do. And all I can do every day is just say, "Okay, God, this is your baby. This is not mine. You are in control. I'm not. You just tell me what to do. And I will do it, because I cannot figure this out." And every day I have to do that. And what that does is it totally keeps the fear at bay. The Lord was using those two situations to remind me, don't flinch. Just look it in the eye, don't move, don't flinch, stay confident in me. This is the Lord speaking. He's saying, just be radically, radically trusting in me, in my love, in my ability, in my sovereignty, in my wisdom. And if you continue to do that, the enemy will back down. When we can just stand And it reminds me of Ephesians 6. We just stand, and we don't lose our confidence, not in ourselves, but we don't lose our confidence in the Lord, and we don't lose our trust, not in other people or money or this or that, but we don't lose our trust in the ability and sovereignty of God. I just firmly believe the enemy will kind of throw up his hands and say, okay, this is no good. This one's not going to back down. So I would like to just pass on that lesson to you and that encouragement to you. I don't know what you're going through, of course, but some of you are facing some difficult things, and so I just really want to encourage you that you serve a God who is absolutely, completely in control. Whatever it takes to dump all of your anxieties and concerns and frustrations and confusion on Him every day, every morning, whatever that takes, so that you can walk in the confidence that comes from knowing that you serve a God who's completely got your back. He's got your back. And I just want to remind you that when you belong to the fearless one, and He is fearless in you and through you, because of course we don't have what it takes to be courageous, but when the fearless one abides in us and we abide in Him, that you really are able to look at these situations and not flinch and not back down or do something foolish out of fear. It really is possible to live that way. So I guess the lesson for today is whatever you are looking at today that would normally or typically send you into a frenzy and send you into fear, don't go there. Don't fret. Lean into God and just trust Him to be God. So let me pray for you. Lord, I don't know what everyone is facing today, but you do, and nothing is a surprise to you. And I know what it is to look at situations that seem really angry and loud and intimidating, but I pray that everyone listening today will lean into you, will grab hold of the supernatural grace and fearlessness and courage and ability and rest and trust and faith and confidence that only you can give, and that we can walk in that all day long, that we can stop wasting so much time and so much energy on running around trying to fix things and trying to look for solutions in other ways apart from you, and that we would just come into alignment with your word and your plan and your way. Lord, I pray that we would surrender all day long to whatever it is that you have for us, knowing that you are our hero and you can do all things and you're completely sovereign. In Jesus' name I pray. Okay, do me a favor, leave me a comment or hit the subscribe button or the like thing, the thumb up, or all three. That would be even better. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.